Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Nigeria slams recent accusations from the US's political right that a Christian genocide in Africa's most populous country has escaped global attention. Republican lawmaker Ted Cruz wants to sanction Nigerian officials for supposedly facilitating mass murder. Abuja says that it is the target of political games and ignorance. And we head to London's Tate Modern and its spotlight of Nigerian modernist art, which, despite the contemporary themes, celebrates much of the rich artistic legacy of Nigeria. And that is where we start. Nigeria, which has rejected claims from prominent US voices of a religious war between Muslims and Christians, which they say is fueling an alleged Christian genocide that authorities have ignored or even facilitated. Republican Senator Ted Cruz is amongst the loudest of the voices from the US's Christian political right alleging this. Cruz has even introduced a bill aimed at targeting Nigerian officials who are believed to facilitate violence against Christians and also to designate Nigeria as a country of particular concern. Now, the administration of President Bola Tinubu, who took office 2 years ago, says that the allegations are a gross mischaracterization amidst a complex landscape of security challenges that no one is denying. So to break all this down, I'm now joined by Daniel Bwala, who is the special advisor to President Tinubu. Daniel, thanks so much for coming in to unpick this. Now, so we're seeing Ted Cruz and those who support him saying that things like, 50,000 Christians have been killed in Nigeria with impunity since 2009, thousands of schools and churches torched. Where is all of this coming from, do you think?
We strongly object to the notion that there is a systematic genocide in Nigeria. We admit of the fact that there is insecurity in the country, which we've been dealing with. Actually, since the past 2 years when the president came on board, we have seen massive improvement in the fight against insecurity. Because before he became president, we used to have prison breaks. There was insecurity right in the city of Abuja, the seat of power. And we have multiplied insecurity situation in every part of the country. But we have now seen sustained fight against it. We have seen the surrendering by major leaders of Boko Haram. We have also seen the recoveries of people that were abducted. These insurgents and Boko Haram people, or bandits as the case may be, when they inflict this crime and heinous, acts of crime, they do not make distinction between the Christians or Muslims. The idea behind the genocidal, concept is a cooked-up narrative by the West because they see that we are making gains with the economy. Some of us have the opinion. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
No, it's cooked up. Who stands to gain from alleging that thousands of people who actually have been killed have been killed as part of a genocide? Why bother?
So first of all of them, from Ted Cruz to Patrick David to Senator Ted Bud, also all these Republican congressmen, almost all of them base their argument on a report by Inter-Society organization. That Inter-Society organization is an organization that is funded by foreign interests, foreign groups. And if you look at that report, there are so many contradictions in that report. First of all, the figures were falsified. They said in that report that they, gathered this data based on multiple sources. But if you go through the report, you see contradiction. The author of the report is someone who, in all of the analysis of the report, never mentioned for 1 second the insecurity situation in the Southeast. In fact, even the insecurity, the killing and murder that were perpetrated by the Eastern Security Network and IPOB, he attributed that to the work of the Nigerian military forces in the pretext of fight against IPOB. So you don't need to go further to know where this whole agenda is coming from.
So it is undoubted that, unpicking the numbers of victims of insecurity in Nigeria is pretty difficult, not only because, the Nigerian military itself has in the past been called out for not being particularly willing to release numbers. Right. On the other hand, you mentioned Boko Haram, which is the Islamic extremist organization that itself has been pointed out as having inflated numbers because they want to make it look like it's got larger reach. However, even if getting specific numbers is difficult, it is undeniable that, hundreds of thousands of people have been killed in Nigeria since, if we're looking specifically at Boko Haram's reach, since it arose in 2009.
Fair enough. And the government is not in denial.
But what are you doing about it? Because
we're fighting. We're fighting insecurity. I just told you a while ago the kind of gains we've achieved in terms of having the leaders of Boko Haram. Recently, we arrested the leaders of a rival group from Boko Haram, which are inflicting all kinds of problems in the West African sub-region. We have seen the surrendering. This is a fact that has been reported everywhere about the insecurity situation in the Northwest. Now, here is the difference. On the government side, we admit of the fact that insecurity is one of the foremost responsibility of government and that we are fighting it and we're dealing with it. Where we have problem is that suddenly there is this narrative that tend to sort of separate between the Christians and other faith and other people who are also victims of this crisis. And that's why we say the agenda is to ensure that they stir up religious crisis in the country. And once they do that, especially most of them, now look at it this way, almost all the lawmakers from abroad who are basing the argument is on a report from one person. Meanwhile, there are multiple sources that have their reports about situation in Nigeria. So
even if the characterization of the targeting of Christian communities as a genocide is, far further than is truly representative of what's happening on the ground. Right. At the same time, voices from the Christian community have for years made it very clear that they feel that their position as being victims of violence from Boko Haram, amongst others, because the majority of Boko Haram's, as far as I understand, as far as we can guess, their victims are Muslim. But at the same time, a substantial number of their victims are also Christian. Now, again, just to point out that the concerns of those who are raising attention about the security situation in Nigeria, they focus on Boko Haram, which generally operate in the northeast of the country, which was born from Borno State, my degree. But then also we have the concerns of the clashes in the Middle Belt between the Fulani and the settled, mostly Christian communities. Right. Now, it's those communities, the Christian communities, who have often become victims of clashes that have gone both ways, that have raised their voices saying that they feel like their very uniquely vulnerable position has not been acknowledged by successive governments. So it's not just Tinubu. So
here's the point. Let me be frank with you. When Boko Haram insurgency started at the beginning, they were targeting Christians and they were burning churches. It has been reported globally because their intention at the time was to stir up religious crisis. Over a period of time, they did not succeed in that. So what they did was they broadened their attack system, which now affected every single Nigerian when you happen to be in their line of action. And to the point where now, if you look at the data in the real sense of the word, has more of the non-Christian faith who are victims of this Boko Haram insurgency.
So we're not arguing that, but what I think that perhaps your viewers or Nigerian nationals would love to hear is, even if there is gross exaggeration from external actors about the nature of who is being targeted by Boko Haram, what is their government doing to acknowledge the vulnerability that they feel after years of being victims of violence, amongst all the others, in a landscape where we keep on hearing these promises of being able to improve security and nothing is being delivered?
No, everything is being delivered. Before 2023, we used to have prison breaks. We no longer have prison breaks. Before 2023, we had some of the local government in Nigeria taken over by the insurgents. We don't have it at the moment. Before 2023, there wasn't a case, or there were no cases of the arrest of the leaders of Boko Haram and their decimation in the number that we are seeing at the moment. Before 2023, you hardly can see major cities in Nigeria where you could go about doing your business.
Daniel, I'm going to have to lose you soon, but I really want, before I leave you, just to very succinctly round up why these allegations of Christian genocide in Nigeria are, according to you, utterly unfounded.
Right. The reason is because Okay, so I'll give you this context
very
briefly. Yeah. At the UNGA, United Nations General Assembly, Nigerian president was represented by the vice president. And in that speech, Nigeria took a position in support of a two-state solution, and we condemned the inhumane treatment in Gaza. 24 hours later, this comedian called Bill Maher started this campaign of Christian genocide.
So
and
you
the
think
report
this
he
is
was basing on...
So you think this is a result of Nigeria's position on Gaza?
Exactly.
Right. Well, I mean, I wish we had more time to unpick it because
problem.
it's a deeply complex situation. But Daniel, we really appreciate the time that you came, you made to come in and speak to us about those allegations of a Christian genocide in Nigeria. And finally, London's Tate Modern is spotlighting Nigerian modernist art in its latest exhibition. Despite the contemporary themes, much of the work celebrates the rich artistic legacy from independence to the modern day of Africa's most populous country. Take a look.
Sculptures, paintings, and textiles, each telling the story of Nigeria's creative evolution. At the heart of the show, these 7 wooden figures by Ben Envonwu, commissioned in 1960 by a British newspaper, stand as symbols of national pride.
There isn't really a kind of defined Nigerian modernism. We kind of really wanted to play with the title to open it up and show our audiences how diverse and how incredible the artistic production and cultural production was.
More than 300 works trace Nigeria's artistic journey, from colonial influence through independence to global recognition. Among them, bold works by Twin 77 and Morena Oyelami, artists who blended traditional Yoruba culture with modern ideas.
I come from Nigeria, but I cannot say this is typical, or this is how a Nigerian work should look like. No, it's a work of art which is universal.
The Tate aims to reshape how the world sees modern art and Nigeria's role within it. The exhibition is on show until May 2026.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.